Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us at the Phantom Tollbooth Cornerstone 2008 press tent. Joining us this afternoon is Charlie Peacock with your very special moderator, Brett McAlpin.
All right, well, Charlie, let me just say welcome back to Cornerstone.
Thank you.
It has, I'm trying to remember, how long has it been since you've been at the festival?
It's been about 8 or 9 years, I think.
Yeah, because I know there were seminars, you've done some seminars a few years ago, and I think 95, the last time we saw you up on...
Yeah, I think that was the last time I played was 95 or 96.
So as you've been back and you've taken it all in, what seems familiar and like home, and what seems new and different and strange?
Well, I mean, this festival has always represented what's alternative in a sense in the Christian community, although it's increasingly less alternative as everything sort of gets commodified and the lines blur a bit in terms of the way people used to think about sacred and secular. So but it's still probably, it's still the most wild place that you can come in terms of a Christian music and arts festival.
Yeah, true. Now it's been, I know you've been playing some. How much of a break from music have you taken?
Well, I've never taken a break from music per se.
But performing and writing.
From performing, I've taken a long break. I've been performing this year a lot more than I have in the last 10 years, and started playing jazz a lot more in the last 7 or 8 years, and I've got 2 jazz recordings out. But yeah, really once the Switchfoot thing took off, I kind of began to bow out of anything having to do with Christian music, except working with a few friends. I work with David Crowder on a record. I work with Sarah Gross on a record.
Yeah. Regarding your return to more regular performing and writing new music, what is it that renewed your desire to get back into that aspect of music?
Yeah, well, I mean, writing songs and singing songs is where I started. I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving, and I want to respect it and be open to new things.
And you mentioned the tour that you recently did, I believe, like out on the West Coast, was it?
Yeah, that's right.
How did that go? What was it like getting back on the horse with playing shows?
It was mostly good, yeah. I mean, a lot of times I'll go to a city and I'll play with a bass player and a drummer that are just from there, like San Diego or LA or something, and play in a club, like a singer-songwriter club. And sometimes it works out good, and other times it's not as good, but yeah, most of my touring is a combination of speaking at colleges and universities, and then playing a singer-songwriter club, or then being involved with a church on the weekend, things like that. So it's very mixed up, in a good way.
Good. And as far as this tour that you've just completed, but as far as new music, new tours, what are the plans for the next few months as far as continuing?
Well, I've just
started.
I just put out a new jazz improvisational music album with Jeff Coffin, who's the saxophonist in Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, and that's kind of my new project right now. I have a 20th anniversary reissue of West Coast Diaries Volume 2 that's out, and then in probably next year I'll put out some new music. I mean, the truth is that when you have been around a long time, people are interested in the music you did when they first found out about you. I mean, that's just true of everybody. If you live long enough, you do this long enough. But nevertheless, I'm an artist, so I continue to make music, whether people are hugely interested or not. I mean, the main thing is to be faithful to your gifts and show up for your own life.
I was excited to hear that West Coast Diaries 2 is getting reissued. I wondered, what was it for you about that album that makes it special and made you think this is the one that should get another shot?
Well, it's one that is most popular, number one. It's one that people have really good memories of, and it's one that's really honest and not overproduced, and so it just makes sense,
Yeah. Is the reissue going to have extra stuff?
No.
Any frills?
No frills.
No.
It's just less reverb, better mastering. That's all.
All right, great. And we do want to make the audience participation microphone available to folks, so perhaps there's someone back there right now that would like to ask Charlie a question? With the mute off?
There we go. Okay.
There.
I wanted to say, Charlie, I would just finished reading some of your At the Crossroads book, and I just wonder, as a follow-up to that, where do you think Christian music is now, a few years later after you have that book out?
Well, I differentiate between Christian music in terms of what God is doing through Christians and music around the world. I mean, that to me is what authentic Christian music is. And then there's the genre of it, which is an industry controlled by 3 major entertainment corporations. And then there's all of the indie music that people are making, so there's many aspects of it. I think that from the commercial aspect of it, it will continue to wane and continue to go down, in a sense, in popularity, except for those kinds of music that serve the church directly. So that's either very youth-oriented music or praise and worship music. And those entertainment corporations will continue to find a way to present that music to you people, and in hopes that you'll buy it. But the real Christian music, which is the music that God is doing through all kinds of people all around the world, will continue to thrive and prosper without any of those machinations or without any of that business infrastructure. And that's the music that I'm most interested in.
We have another audience question.
Yeah, unfortunately I got here late, so I missed most of the press conference. Sorry about that.
No, that's all
This
right.
might be a question you've already answered, but
No, just started.
okay. Where are you residing now? Is the art house open, and can I stop by and say hi sometime?
Okay. Yes, I reside pretty much 9 months out of the year in Nashville, Tennessee, and 3 months in California. And the art house is open whenever we have a public event. All are welcome. And we don't have that many public events anymore because most of the work that I do is more of a consulting nature. Although, for example, we're having an artist retreat coming up in September, but that's like all sort of highly selected artists from around the country that will come to that retreat for 2 days. So most of the people that come to Art House now are people that have been through a selection process, in a sense. So, but every once in a while we still have a public event, it could be a house concert, could be a lecture, could be, something like that. But yeah, thank you for asking. And people ask me that all the time. I will say, they'll say, well, where's Art House's website? It's like, no, we're really on the down low. And if you want to find out more about it, there is an FAQ sheet over at our booth in the large exhibit tent. So just come by and pick up some stuff, and you can get more information. There's some articles that people have written about us, and you can pick those up too.
Well, I want to piggyback on what was asked about kind of towards at the Crossroads ideas. I just read the part of the updated version where you added a chapter addressing the increase in popularity of worship music as a subgenre in the CCM world. And I wondered, because that was about 4 or 5 years ago that chapter was added. And I wondered if there was maybe 1 or 2 developments that you've seen since then that you think might warrant a chapter in a future edition of At the Crossroads.
Well, I think, you know, the commercial aspect of worship music is waning already too, just like all the other cycles have waned. And I think that for those of you who watch these things and who want to be faithful stewards of your time and money and the way that you do, in fact, praise and worship God, you know, I mean, keep your eyes peeled, because those people that leave the movement because the cash is no longer there, I think it'll tell its own story. You know, those that are committed to serve the church in that way, whether there's cash present or not, then you'll know that that's their true calling, right? So keep your eyes peeled.
I was thinking of something I wanted to ask you about record labels. And
What's a record label?
Good answer. How are you seeing that affecting the industry right now in terms of, not just in terms of how music is distributed, but also in terms of how Christians identify with music?
Yeah. Well, Christians and otherwise don't identify with music through record labels anymore. There may have been a time years ago when Christians, say, would have bought something that Sparrow Records put out because they knew that they had credible artists and they wanted to be supportive of whatever they put out. Those days are gone. People think the largest brand today is a single song, and that brand lasts as long as that song will last. And so it's sort of like the highest level of interest is in the song, and then the artist, you know, and then maybe the record label or somebody, a producer or something. But it's not like it was even 10 years ago. I mean, people are just only interested in whether they like the song or not. And if they do, they might make an effort to find out the rest of the story.
Yeah. And also back to what was being asked about the art house. Tell us about the role that the art house has played, and maybe is still playing, in developing younger artists who are, you know, just starting to get into their craft.
Well, just as an FYI, I mean, the Art House America plays a role in the development of musical artists that go out into the mainstream. And there's probably many artists that you've heard of that we have play some role in, whether it's spiritual nurture or hooking them up with financial means to continue to do what they do, you know, and several of them, you know, have been playing here this weekend. You know, some of them are people that you know, have heard of, like Switchfoot and other bands that we've developed and been a part of.
Well, I thought I saw an audience question coming, but guess not.
Okay. Yeah, was there any other questions before I go? If there's somebody who wants to ask one, let me know.
I have one back here.
Okay.
You talk about a kingdom perspective in your At the Crossroads book, and you talk about a lot of musicians coming from a non-traditional church background as part of like the early Jesus movement. And do you still see that in bands today with younger bands where they don't have as much of either a church or theology background, where they're just kind of going off feelings?
Well, sure. I mean, you know, if a child has musical talent, I mean, they go towards being a musician first, not a theologian. So, you know, I mean, that's just the way it's always been. If there are, I think there was so much more of an expectation in the time of Randy Stonehill, Larry Norman, and Keith Green, etc., for people to be a minister as well as a musician. And so there was that cultural expectation in the church. And as we know, that's faded. And in many ways, that's been a really good thing, because if you're a musician, you should be able to just be a musician first. But on the other hand, it's been a really bad thing too, because it's created a huge gulf of theological illiteracy amongst musicians, where they don't even know why they're motivated to do what they do. So I think the middle ground is somewhere between those two poles, you know, where people are allowed the freedom to be musicians first and to become highly skilled at that and to be imaginative and creative, but at the same time, they can also be responsible human beings to learn about their planet, learn about what it means to love all that God loves. And that's a huge work in and of itself, too. So I kind of embrace both those things, that's what a healthy person looks like.
Well, I want to ask you about your gallery stage concert tonight. I understand you brought back a few of the old crew who are going to be joining you. What can we expect tonight?
Yeah, I'm trying to give some old-timers a gig. I've got Jimmy Abeg, who's played here with me at Cornerstone a number of times. I played with Rich Mullins here a lot. He'll be here playing guitar. And then Kevin Max from DC Talk is going to be singing with me. And Steve Hendelong from the choir and Lost Dogs is going to play some drums. And I think Mike Rowe is going to sit in on a song too.
Very good. Well,
it's certainly one worth looking forward to if you haven't had an opportunity to see Charlie in concert. Tonight's the night. It's going to be a wonderful experience. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, there's no question. And I'm at the top of my game, so you're going to miss it.
I wanted to ask about some of your jazz influences other than the name, the Peacock name, but what else that you enjoy from the jazz world?
Well, you know, I'm hugely influenced by Miles Davis and John Coltrane, and even though that doesn't come out in the pop music, it comes out more in methodology. Like Miles Davis was probably one of the greatest band leaders in terms of casting people, of being able to see the potential in people and give them the platform that they could grow and develop. And so that's been a big part of my work as a producer and as a band leader and as a mentor. So I really take a page from that. From Coltrane, I take a page that, you know, he had his most famous and important recording, A Love Supreme, the most, you know, well-known, the biggest selling album of his career when it was his most spiritual. So he took that into the public square, you know, where everybody lived life, and he had the testosterone, if you will, to be that transparent. You know, I mean, the whole album is a prayer to God, and yet it's also seen as the greatest jazz album of all time. So I think those are the kinds of significant stories that I try to be influenced by and to put into my own work.
As you're performing with and befriending and mentoring developing artists, what are some encouraging things that you see kind of in general moving in the music world amongst a new wave of songwriters and musicians?
Well, you know, as much as can be said about how bad the record business is right now, music is at an all-time high. There is great music being made, and God is faithful to continue to pour this genetic mystery of music into people, and people are making great music, and young people are showing up for their lives, and I think it's the most exciting time for music for me in 20 years at least. It's just how we'll figure out a way for people to sustain their lives by making music as well. I mean, I think that's the key thing. That's why most of my work has moved more to finding benefactors for people, so that while we work through this transition of how we're going to make a living again making music, then we can use some of the wealth that other businesses have created to sustain music while we get through this transition period.
Well, as we're here at the 25th anniversary of Cornerstone, everybody feeling a little bit nostalgic, looking back on what's happened, what are some of your favorite Cornerstone memories that,
gosh, well, I mean, my favorite all-time favorite Cornerstone memory was back at the other property when we had a really powerful visitation of God's Spirit one night. And people stayed and danced for hours and hours after the concert was over, and it was just an amazing evening, and where you get to know fully the transcendence of God through music, which is kind of a rare occurrence. I mean, when it happens happens to you, you think, oh, this is the way it'll be. I guess it's going to be like this all the time. But it's not necessarily like that.
Yeah, that's true. What you mentioned a few minutes ago, theological illiteracy that comes from the freedom to just be musicians first. I wondered if, in addition to that, is there any particular caution or concern that you would share with developing musicians, people just starting out? What is one thing for a Christian who's making music to be careful over, to make sure to keep in mind as they get into their art?
Gosh, I guess I always hunger for music that makes me feel the wholeness of what it means to be human, so that it touches me emotionally. It could wreck me, it could break my heart, it could just wrench my guts, and I long for music that makes me think, that makes me stumble over something, to the point where if I was arrogant in something, that now I'm not arrogant. I realize I have to change my ways of thinking. And so when music does that and makes you feel more human, then I think it's doing what it's supposed to do. However it takes, whatever it takes to do that, it gets reframed and reshaped in every generation. But I still think that that's the goal of music, is for it to be that in the world. And when music doesn't do that, it's just filling up the air with a lot of unnecessary things, that just don't need to be there. It makes for, in many ways, the Cornerstone Fest is kind of a picture of that. When you hear, I'm speaking right now, we've got this band playing over here, there's another band playing over there, and it's just, what you're hearing and seeing is a tremendous amount of choice. It's like the fruit of so much choice. And there's no editor, there's no librarian, it's just all these choices. And because there's such a cacophony of choices, in many ways it's difficult to discern what is good and right and true, and maybe that's right for you.
Are there artists you listen to currently that you feel do those meaningful things for you that they're accomplishing in their art?
Well, there's a band playing at 4:30 called Paper Route that I'm a big fan of. But if you want to win the Telecaster guitar that we have our booth, you can't go to their show because we're giving it away at 4:30. There's so many artists that I'm into that I think are great, that you can find on the internet. If you want to email me at charliepeacock@mac.com, I'll send you a list of indie artists that I think are great.
Very good. I think I'll take you up on that. Well, do we have any further questions from the audience? This is your big chance to...
Please step up to the microphone back here.
We're trying to record all the questions because this is going to be broadcast to the world online.
At tollbooth.org.
Well, first of all, I just want to say hello.
Hello.
Big fan, long-time fan, and first-time Cornerstoner. But I was just wondering where your booth was.
Yes, my booth is in that really gigantor tent right over there. I think that's it. It's probably the longest tent. I think is that it, Mark? Right there? Yeah, it's in that tent, and it's on what end?
Exhibition 1.
Yeah, it's on this end right here. So Exhibition 1, and it says Art House America. There's a banner. There's a beautiful Telecaster guitar sitting there waiting to be given away. If you haven't got a ticket for it, go over there and fill one out, and maybe you'll win a guitar.
Okay.
And pick up some information about Art House too, in case you have a student that might benefit from what we do, or you're in a band, or so let us know.
All right. Well, 7:20 at the gallery, I believe.
7:20 at the gallery.
Check it out.
Just for the internet record, I do have one more question.
Okay.
Everybody knows you as Charlie Peacock.
That's right.
Other people know you as...
My given name?
Yes.
Oh, Charles William Ashworth?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Or Chucky, as my mom might call me.
Chucky, huh?
All right. Well, for Cornerstone purposes, it's Charlie Peacock. Thank you very much for stopping by. It's been
Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Peacock, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Make sure you check out his set tonight at the Gallery Stage.